finish enough things and you don't need motivation anymore. You become the type of person who finishes, period. Listen, someone listening right now, you, has something unfinished sitting quietly in the background of your life. A project, a task, a course you paid for, training you started, education you didn't complete, a book, I'm guilty, haven't finished it, okay? And you're not lazy, you're not incapable, you're not broken, but unfinished things carry weight. They create mental noise, they drain energy, they whisper, you didn't do what you said. That's why finishing matters beyond productivity. Hello, welcome to the Shattered Mindset Podcast, wisdom from life's turning points and defining moments. I'm your host, Builder Larry, and listen, I want to talk about something that sounds simple on the surface, but it's one of the biggest separators I've seen in life, business, leadership, and personal growth. Started with a line that came to me unexpectedly, and honestly, it surprised me how deeply it resonated with me. Tenacity by itself is a business school. Now, that line didn't come from a book. It didn't come from a seminar. It didn't come from a training manual. No. It came from watching behavior. I was watching a reel on Instagram page called the School of Hard Knocks. There's a young man on that page who does something that most people aren't willing to do. He consistently approaches high-level entrepreneurs, millionaires sometimes, billionaires even, and asks them for interviews. Now, he doesn't do it once, okay? He does it again and again and again. All right. Sometimes he's ignored. Sometimes he's brushed off. Sometimes the interaction is uncomfortable in real time. But what stood out to me wasn't the people he was trying to interview, it was him. The persistence, the refusal to quit, the willingness to stay uncomfortable long enough to get an answer, or at least get better. Watching that unfold sparked the thought in me, and I typed a simple comment under the reel. This guy's tenacity is a business school. I didn't expect anything to come from it, just a comment that I typed. But as I'm recording this, that one sentence has received nearly 12,000 likes. And what struck me wasn't the number, it was the recognition. People saw the lesson immediately because most of us understand tenacity when we see it. When I watched that young man on the School of Hard Knocks page, what stood out to me wasn't just persistence, it was where he was willing to place himself. Look, he's not emailing from a distance. He's not waiting for permission. He's not saying, I could never do that. He walks up, he asks, he gets ignored, he gets brushed off, he gets a no, and then here's the part most people miss. He stays present. And I thought about how many people say they want success, but won't even pick up the phone to call a prospect, won't follow up, won't risk rejection, won't risk looking foolish. Some people see that young man and say, I could never do that. All right. And well, look, they're right. Not because it's impossible, but because their I quit level kicks in long before action does. That's when it hit me. Tenacity isn't just about pushing, it's about where you're willing to stay uncomfortable. And that kind of education, that's not theory, that's tuition paid in real time. Here's what I want to clear up early. Tenacity is often treated like a personality trait, like you either have it or you don't. Like some people were just born tougher, more driven, more disciplined. I don't believe that altogether. I believe tenacity is trained and life trains it whether you volunteer or not. Life introduces pressure. Life introduces delay. Life introduces resistance. And in those moments, you're being taught something, whether you realize it or not. That's why I believe this so strongly. Tenacity by itself is a business school because tenacity teaches lessons you don't learn when things are smooth. I've watched people my whole life and seen clear differences. I've seen one kid with hustle and another without it. One person who doesn't need to be motivated, another who needs constant encouragement. Just to start, I've seen people get confused, frustrated, and paralyzed under pressure, and I've seen others get sharper when things get tight. Look, ever watch kids, the little kids playing baseball, t-ball, and whatever, and you see one kid who's like ho-humming and another kid who's hustling. I just listen, you just don't know who's where. So look, let's just tell the truth. Some people are wired with a higher starting point for tenacity. But here's the part we can't ignore. And that starting point does not determine the finish because raw hustle without discipline burns out. Natural confidence without endurance collapses under pressure, and untrained grit still quits when the cost gets high enough. All right. So, what separates people long term isn't just who starts strong, it's who stays engaged when the resistance shows up. And that's where tenacity stops being a trait and becomes a practice. That's why I say tenacity is a business school, because regardless of how you start, you're trained by what you endure. Listen, I think about tenacity. I was thinking about how Michael Jordan played in a championship game with the flu. I mean, sick with the flu. But look, he scored, what did he score? 50 points in that game? How many did he score before? Not that many. Tenacity, he rose to the occasion. Let me go a little deeper here. I heard a phrase that stuck with me, and I want to use it as a point of reflection, not as an insult. Some people have a low IQ, they have a low I quit level. That's the difference. All right. Plenty of intelligent people stop early. Plenty of educated people stop early. Plenty of talented people stop early. Not because they couldn't do it, but because they decided it wasn't worth pushing through. Your I quit level shows up when things stop being exciting, when progress slows down, when the plan doesn't work the way you thought it would. And that moment right there, that's a classroom. All right. Let's talk more about this idea of IQ versus I quit level, because really this needs a little nuance. I'm not saying intelligence doesn't matter. I'm saying it's not the deciding factor people think it is. I've seen brilliant people quit early, and I've seen average people stay longer and win. The difference often shows up under pressure, when things stop working, when finances tighten, when progress slows, when life hits sideways. Some people shut down, others lock in. That's not about intelligence, that's about tolerance for friction. Your I quit level is the point where discomfort overrides commitment. And here's what tenacity teaches you: slowly and painfully, if necessary. Discomfort is not danger, resistance is not rejection, delay is not denial. That lesson alone can change the trajectory of a life. Hey, if your furry friend is overdue for a spa day, let me put you on to Wolfgang Bakery and Grooming right here in Marietta. These folks do it all, full grooms to coloring, whatever your pet needs to look fresh. Their expert groomers are true pros, and they take great care of every pet that walks through the door. They've got your pet style covered. You can call them at 470-523-8068 or stop by 2500 Dallas Highway, Suite 540, Marietta, Georgia. Use the code mindset/Wolfgang so they know you came from this podcast. Wolfgang Bakery and Grooming, Marietta. There's a specific kind of pressure that hits when you still believe in the objective. but the path doesn't look doable anymore. The numbers don't line up. The time isn't there. The energy isn't high. The results aren't showing. That's when most people quietly back away. But that moment is where tenacity teaches its most valuable lesson. Tenacity teaches you how to adjust without abandoning the goal, how to stay focused without being emotional, to keep moving without needing clarity on every step. When something doesn't look doable, you stop relying on motivation and start relying on commitment. And commitment is trained, not felt. I like to say that you can make decisions and all kinds of decisions, but until you make a commitment, your decision may just be something you said. But the commitment is what makes your decisions real. All right. But look, here's why I want to slow things down. Being a finisher is not about perfection. It's not always about feeling confident or about never getting tired. No, being a finisher is about having integrity with your own word. When you say you're going to do something, listen, ask yourself, do you believe yourself? Because confidence is built through evidence, and evidence is built through finishing. Every time you finish something, your mind records it. Every time you quit, your mind records that too. And over time, one becomes your identity. Look, finishers don't finish because it's easy. They finish because stopping costs them something internally. Finishing isn't about checking a box. It's about what happens internally when you complete something you didn't feel like finishing. Okay, look, every finish teaches your nervous system something important. I can be trusted. And every unfinished thing quietly teaches the opposite. That's why finishing a project, training, or course matters, even if nobody else ever sees it. You're not just completing a task, you're training your identity, and identity compounds. Finish enough things and you don't need motivation anymore. You become the type of person who finishes, period. Listen, someone listening right now, you, has something unfinished sitting quietly in the background of your life. A project, a task, a course you paid for, training you started, education you didn't complete, a book, I'm guilty, haven't finished it. Okay. And you're not lazy, you're not incapable, you're not broken, but unfinished things carry weight. They create mental noise, they drain energy, they whisper, you didn't do what you said. That's why finishing matters beyond productivity. It restores trust with yourself. Here's a simple shift that helps without overwhelming you. Okay. Don't ask, can I finish everything? Ask, what is my next finish? Let me say that again. Don't ask, can I finish everything? Ask, what is my next finish? Finishing isn't one big heroic moment. It's a series of small completions stacked over time. Finish the call. Finish the outline. Finish the workout. Finish the module. Finish the application. Finish the chapter. Each finish raises your I quit level. And sometimes the win isn't finishing everything today. Sometimes the win is just staying enrolled. Staying enrolled is a form of tenacity. It means you didn't quit emotionally. You didn't abandon the objective. You didn't walk away when it got uncomfortable. And staying enrolled long enough is how learning compounds. Which brings us right back to the truth about what started the whole conversation. Tenacity by itself is a business school. But staying enrolled by itself is not enough either. Some people don't quit what they're enrolled in, they just quit doing what they enrolled for. They stay on the roster, but stop showing up fully. They pay for the course, but stop engaging. They keep the business, but stop prospecting. They remain employed, but mentally check out. And that's not tenacity, that's passive endurance. Tenacity requires active enrollment. Active enrollment means you're still participating, you're still practicing, you're still applying, you're still showing effort even when enthusiasm is gone. Active enrollment is what turns time into training because time alone doesn't teach you, engagement does. That's why some people stay enrolled for years and never grow, while others compress years of growth into months. Tenacity isn't just staying in the room, it's staying in the work. Look, here's your reflection for this week, simple and grounded. Pick an unfinished thing that matters. Decide what your next finish is. Schedule it. Complete it. Not because it's magical, but because you're rebuilding trust with yourself. Let me leave you with a quote that started it all. Tenacity by itself is a business school. You don't have to be perfect to make progress, but you do have to stay enrolled long enough to learn. Until the next time, keep adapting, keep evolving, and keep reaching for those higher horizons. Don't forget to share this, subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Take care. Take charge.